Alrighty, folks. So I want you to open your binders to page 66 of conventions. Again, page 66 of conventions. Today we are going to be going over what you and your grammar group yesterday should have completed together, but I want to make sure that you noticed the things that I hoped you had noticed. So keep page 66 open. Feel free to make notes or changes as we discuss things right now in this video. So the directions said there are a handful of ways one can use a colon. A colon is this little guy right here. If you weren't aware of that, it's two dots on top of each other, which is why a semicolon, which is a dot, and then the comma is called a semicolon because it's half of a colon. It only has one of the two dots. Today we're going to learn 3 different ways to use a colon, but I wanted you to discover those ways yesterday with your group mates. So hopefully, if you didn't discover all of them, at least you discovered one of them maybe. Let's look at the first one. So we've got this column that says correct and then incorrect. Let's look at the correct column first. You may be required to bring many things, colon, sleeping bags, pans, utensils, and warm clothing. I want the following items, colon, butter, sugar, and flour. These are the 8 parts of speech, colon, noun, pronoun, adjective, verb, adverb, preposition, conjunction, and introduction. Okay, so I think before I even look at the incorrect column, I think it's really obvious that the colons in every single one of these sentences are introducing like a list. Every single one of them, it's like a colon and then a list of things. But let's look at the incorrect column. How could you introduce a list incorrectly? I want, colon, butter, sugar, and flour. I've seen the greats, including, colon, Barrymore, Guinness, and Streep. We saw our dog run into, colon, the woods, the house, and the neighbor's backyard. So just by looking at it, I still have a colon followed by a list. In every single one of these, I have a colon followed by a list. So if what comes after the colon right now is the same, it's just a list of things, maybe it's what comes before the colon. So let's look at that. We saw our dog run into. Well, that's not a sentence. That's a fragment. These are the 8 parts of speech. That is a sentence. I've seen the greats, including. That's not a sentence. I want the following items. That is a sentence. So, considering the examples above, I can use a colon to introduce a list, but there has to be a complete sentence before the colon. That's the rule about using them as a list. All right. Let's go on. Hopefully you were able to write 2 of your own sentences here. For now, we're going to go and review the next rule. So the next rule, again, the sentences below demonstrate a second way we can use a colon. Again, think about the differences between the correct and incorrect columns before answering the questions. Okay. So Lenny constantly asks George to repeat the story of their dream, colon. Tell me about the rabbits, comma, George. Another correct one that you saw the other day. Thoreau ends his essay with a metaphor, colon. Time is but the stream I go a-fishing in. And the last correct example, I repeat my grandfather's advice each day, colon. Do your best and let God take care of the rest. So, if I'm looking at just the correct column without looking at the incorrect column yet, it is clear that after every colon, I have a quote, which actually you guys already know about this rule. It's an integration of quote rule. We know we can introduce a quote with a colon. So how could you do that incorrectly? Let's look at the incorrect column. Miss DeLapp said, colon, take out your homework. In his book, Goldman states that, colon, life isn't fair. Inigo Montoya constantly says, colon, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Now, The big difference if you're looking at the correct and incorrect column, hopefully yesterday what you noticed with your partners was that, again, just like the last examples, before the colon, it has to be a complete sentence. My incorrect column, every single one of those aren't full sentences. In fact, the first one and the last one should have commas instead of colons, and the middle one should have nothing there. Those aren't complete sentences followed by a quote. However, if I look at the correct column, every single one of them has an entire sentence to introduce the quote, then a colon, and then the quote. So to answer this question, what's the second way I can use a colon? I can use a colon to introduce a quote, but there must be a complete sentence before the colon. And then hopefully number 2, what you should have done yesterday is written 2 examples of that on your own. Let's look together at the final way you can use a colon. I think this is the trickiest, so hopefully it didn't cause you too much stress yesterday, and don't freak out today if reviewing this video go, oh my goodness, I got that totally wrong. This is definitely the trickiest one. So the directions say the sentences below illustrate the final way we will be using colons in this class. This colon rule is a bit trickier to figure out. Look at the relationship between what follows the colon and what is underlined before the colon. Subject-wise, not like grammar or placement, like where it is in the sentence. So let's look at the correct column first. At times, it is okay to forget about your brain and just follow something else, colon, your heart. Notice in this sentence, I underlined something else. That's what I want you to pay attention to. The next one, I believe in 2 things, colon, the power of nature and the unpredictability of man. Again, notice I underlined 2 things. So I'm drawing your attention to that phrase. The last correct usage, he will be the winner of Loughborough's oldest award, colon, the Arthur Scotland Trophy. Again, I underlined the word award. I'm trying to draw your attention to award. Just looking at the correct column and thinking about what this rule may be, if I look at each of those things that I underlined, and then what comes after the colon, I have something else, your heart. 2 things, and then 2 things are named. Award, and then an award is named. So it seems that whatever is underlined in the original sentence is like defined or described a little bit more after the colon. Let's look at the incorrect column. Janice liked to talk, colon, she often exaggerated. He ate his breakfast quickly, colon, then he rushed off to work. People practice many different religions, colon, 3 major religions worship just one God. So again, even in the incorrect column, though it's wrong, it does appear that like what comes after the colon is helping to explain what became before the colon. So why are these ones wrong if they're doing the same thing the correct column is doing? Let's look at it more closely. In the incorrect column, you have an entire sentence after every colon. So they're trying to connect 2 complete independent clauses together with a colon. We know we do that with a semicolon, though. That's a compound sentence. So that's just grammatically wrong. But if we look over at the correct column, we still have those underlined phrases are really being defined by what comes after the colon. But what comes after the colon isn't a complete sentence. It's just a definition of what came right before the colon. So that's actually what the last usage of a colon is. I can use a colon to help define something named or introduced in the sentence. what comes after the colon should not be a complete sentence. Hopefully you did okay on this. I know it was a brand new concept and you're trying to do it digitally with group members, but hopefully it wasn't too difficult. I understand if this last one was pretty tricky. We're going to have some practice with colons next week though, so make sure your notes are correct. You can review this video over again if needed. That's all I have for you for colons today. There is another video on Hapara Workspace to bring you to the next step of your argumentative essay. So make sure you go and watch that next. Thanks, guys.